Chapter 11. Sorry, I don't really know how to use cutlery and nearly hurt you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 11. Sorry, I don't really know how to use cutlery and nearly hurt you. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. At this moment, a lady in her mid-30s dressed in a blue suit hurried into the store. The shop assistants greeted her one after another. "Hello, manager." The woman nodded, commanding the shop assistant who was previously serving Wen Xinya. "Take the 5 pieces of jewelry that Miss Wen had seen previously and wrap them up. In a while, we will send them to the Wen's mansion for Miss Wen. She must receive them personally." The shop assistant was surprised, suddenly realizing that the total cost of the 5 accessories would amount close to $1 million. What did the manager mean by wrapping them up? Even with thoughts like these, she was not slow, quickly wrapping the valuable pieces of jewelry up exquisitely. This was when Ning Shuqing had already paid, and the cashier was handing over the receipt to Ning Shuqing. Ning Shuqing instructed the shop assistant to deliver the things to the Wen mansion. Although she was distressed, she could use this chance to ask Hao Wen for reimbursement. At the same time, she could portray herself as gentle and generous in front of old Mr. Wen, so she had to perform well today. Then, the shop's manager walked over elegantly. "Mrs. Wen. How come you have the time to come here today?" Ning Shuqing was a regular of this store, so she was very acquainted with the store manager, Li Mengjie, who was a competent woman. Ning Shuqing did not dare to look down on her. Today's main agenda was to accompany Xinya shopping for some clothes. As she spoke, she pulled Wen Xinya closer and introduced. "This is our Wen family's eldest daughter, Wen Xinya. She just returned to the Wen family a few days ago." Li Mengjie smiled and reached out. "Hello, Miss Wen. I'm this store's manager, Li Mengjie." Li Mengjie sized up the Miss Wen in front of her, who was wearing the goose-yellow gauze skirt she just bought. The hem of the long skirt was sewn with light blue flower patterns, bringing about a sense of delicateness and vigor. She paired her outfit with an apple-green jade ornament, portraying an aura of certainty. Li Mengjie subtly glanced at Wen Yuya and Xia Ruya. Wen Yuya had a tall frame, choosing to play the beautiful character, looking much older than she actually was when she dressed up. Xia Ruya took the elegant path of grandeur, dressing appropriately but lacking the youthfulness a 15-year-old girl should have. When one dresses according to their age, one puts themselves in a position that suits them best. This Miss Wen is not simple-minded. Wen Xinya was not bothered by Li Mengjie's evaluation of her, gently shaking the tip of her hand and greeting her back. "Manager Li, hello. Next month we will have a new batch of the latest designs. Miss Wen, be sure to come and take a look," Li Mengjie announced. Of course. Though she had no idea why this store manager was so attentive towards her, naturally, she did not know how to reject such a friendly invitation. Li Mengjie watched Wen Xinya leave the store with an odd expression on her face. Long after they had left, she finally turned to her employees and instructed. "The next time Miss Wen is here, take the utmost care in serving her needs. There is no room for carelessness." With regards to the drama happening within the Wen family, it had already started circulating within their social circle. Everyone was extremely curious about the legitimate eldest daughter of the Wen family. Her 15 years of history was dug out by people, and even the high society could differentiate between rumors and the truth were spreading about Missy Wen's unruliness, bad temper, and extravagant habits. She was not like the other young daughters of wealthy, classy families. She was more like a little hooligan of the streets. She was just a fraud. However, it was apparent that the rumors were not true. If the Miss Wen now and the Miss Wen from before were to stand together, one with an appearance of grace, the other with a spirit of elegance, which is to say which is the better one. Only those with an excellent eye would be able to tell. To be able to be that person, Miss Wen's value as a person naturally rose. Dawdling for a while, Ning Shuqian brought Wen Xinya to a Western cuisine restaurant. Wen Xinya's eyes lit up with ridicule. In the morning she avoided embarrassment, but now this. Looking at the cutlery and the 70% cooked steak in front of her, Wen Xinya laughed and said to Xia Ruya, Ruya, I just returned to the Wen family and have yet to learn how to use Western cutlery. Do you mind helping me cut the steak? Xia Ruya had to present herself as a gentle and kind person at all times so she would not refuse her. Xia Ruya's face stiffened a little, then smiled. Sure. The knife in Ning Shuqian's hand paused for a bit, as she lifted her head to look towards Wen Xinya. Her gaze was soft as dawn, but when she felt her gaze on her, she turned slightly towards her. In her eyes, there was a shocking coldness. Ning Shuqian withdrew her gaze. How could a 15-year-old young girl have such a scary gaze? It must be her imagination. With that thought in mind, she looked at Xinya with her peripheral vision. Sure enough, this time, when Xinya had taken up the knife and fork and was copying Xia Ruya exactly. Wen Yuya's eyes were filled with disdain. The dignified Miss Wen cannot even cut up a steak by herself. She doesn't even know a single thing about Western etiquette. This is beyond hilarious. At this, the knife in Wen Xinya's hand actually slipped and flew towards Wen Yuya. Ning Shuqian was greatly shocked and shouted. Yuya! Wen Yuya was so shocked that all the color drained from her face. In her panic to dodge, she accidentally brushed the cup in front of her onto the floor. Clang! The loud sound echoed in the profound Western restaurant in seconds. Even though there were not many people around in the afternoon, there were still a few tables filled, and the commotion had attracted everyone's attention immediately. Wen Yuya burned a bright shade of red, but then saw that the knife that had made her cower in fear was stuck right in front of her. Under the crystal lights, the refraction of the blade shone harshly. Wen Yuya panicked and looked at Ning Shuqian with a wronged expression. Ning Shuqian turned pale. She was quite sure that Wen Xinya, that little b*tch, did it on purpose. Xinya, how could you be so careless? What if the knife landed on Yuya's body and hurt Yuya? Wen Xinya looked at Wen Yuya with eyes filled with regret. Aunt Ning, I'm really sorry. I'm not good with the cutlery, so with a slip of the hand, I nearly hurt Yuya. I hope you will not mind. She then turned to Wen Yuya with a sincere look and said, Sister Yuya, I'm sorry. You obviously did it on purpose, said Wen Yuya angrily. Xia Ruya hurried to comfort her. Sister Yuya, don't you love the steak from this restaurant? The steak is turning cold, and when it's cold, it will not be as good. Wen Yuya was prepared to say something, but the look in Ning Shuqian's eyes stopped her. After being played by Wen Xinya like that, a Western meal that was originally delicious tasted like wax in the mouth now. The soft, comfortable sofa felt as uncomfortable as though she was sitting on needles. She would never dare to bring her to another Western restaurant. At this time, Xia Ruya had cut up the steak and served it to Wen Xinya. Xinya, do you want me to teach you Western etiquette? No need, in 2 days Grandpa will arrange an etiquette instructor for me. Wen Xinya hid a sense of warning in her voice. Yesterday, Xia Ruya still provoked her about everything. Today, it was evident that she was on the same team with Ning Shuqian and her daughter, but afterward, she acted like a bystander, taking no sides. Now she was even voluntarily offering her help. It looks like she had underestimated her. Chapter 12. 160.5 million. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 12. 160.5 million. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios finally, after spending an entire day shopping, they got what they needed. They had bought over 20 sets of outfits from several different shops, together with matching jewelry, accessories, shoes, cosmetics, bathroom accessories and more. Ning Shuqian had spent a lot of money on that day. They returned to the Wen family at about 8 p.m. and found old Mr. Wen sitting in the living room waiting for them. Wen Xinya was wearing her new yellow dress, looking young, neat and elegant. Old Mr. Wen nodded slightly in approval. Indeed, clothes make the man. He asked, you are back. Have you had dinner? Ning Shuqian felt flattered. She answered, yes, we had homemade cooking for dinner. It was good. The more old Mr. Wen looked at Wen Xinya, the more he was satisfied. After an entire day of shopping, you must be tired. Go back to your rooms to rest. Xinya, stay behind. Ning Shuqian smiled reluctantly and agreed. Yes, father. You have an early rest too. Wen Yuya clenched her teeth tightly. She wondered if she received different treatment because she was an adopted daughter. Aunt Ning, sorry to trouble you for the whole day. Good night and sweet dreams, said Wen Xinya smilingly. Ning Shuqian dragged the angry Wen Yuya as they left the living room together. Only old Mr. Wen and Wen Xinya remained in the living room. He said, the things you purchased have been delivered. I asked Mother Wang to pack them on your behalf. Thank you, Grandpa. Wen Xinya thanked him with appreciation. I've done some serious thinking when you were out. I plan to organize an evening banquet 3 months later to make the official announcement about you returning to the Wen family. I'll get Secretary Chow to arrange some etiquette related classes for you. You have to prove your worthiness as the eldest daughter from an affluent family in 3 months' time. Can you do that? Old Mr. Wen informed her with a stern look in his eyes. To prove her worthiness as the eldest daughter from an affluent family within 3 months would be a daunting task for her previous life Wen Xinya. But for the new reborn Wen Xinya, it would be a piece of cake. Grandpa, please believe me. I will prove my worthiness as the eldest daughter of the Wen family and make you proud, she promised. The smile on Wen Xinya's face was as beautiful as the blooming flowers on the cliff wall. It made old Mr. Wen thought he had made the right choice. Old Mr. Wen turned around and returned to his room. At this moment, Mother Wang brought a man who was wearing a blue uniform to the living room. Miss Wen, this is the delivery from the shop you visited earlier today, Joe. Ramst. I have asked someone to send them to your room for packing. But the delivery man said he needed you to sign off and receive a few items personally, she informed. Wen Xinya nodded and walked over to them. The man in the blue uniform handed her the receipt respectfully. Wen Xinya just took a quick glance at it. She knew what were the items she had purchased earlier. Therefore, she quickly signed and took over the big rectangle box from Mother Wang's hands. Wen Xinya returned to her room and opened the big box mindlessly. There were 5 smaller boxes of premium packaging inside. From the premium packaging, she could tell these boxes contained expensive items. As she doubtfully opened the 5 boxes one by one, she found the boxes contained the 5 pieces of expensive jewelry accessories she saw earlier. She was shocked. She then immediately dialed to the main number of Joe. Ramst. Within a short while, someone picked up the line. I'm Wen Xinya. Can I speak to Manager Yimengjie? She requested. I am Wen Xinya versus my name is Wen Xinya were 2 different ways of speaking, and they conveyed very different meanings. The first way communicated to the listener ample faith, as if he or she must know who Wen Xinya was. While the latter would present to the listener an introduction with a lack of confidence. The choice between these 2 messages would also affect the way the listener judged her. Within seconds, Yimengjie answered her call. Hi, Miss Wen, you've called me at a late hour. How can I help you? Wen Xinya's reply was direct. I have seen 5 pieces of jewelry in the shop earlier but I did not purchase them. Did you deliver them to my place by mistake? Yimengjie responded with a chuckle. Miss Wen, you are kidding with me, aren't you? At Joe. Ramst we'd never make such a mistake. That 5 pieces of jewelry and accessories were the latest collection from the new season and were transferred to us directly from the main branch of the Wen Corporation's jewelry shop. It was originally designed to match Guihan, Master Gu's 5 award-winning sets of clothes in Paris. They were the sculptured white jaded rose, pigeon blood red ruby, South Ocean powdered pearl, Burmese wreath gem, and South African liquid diamond. They are worth $160.5 million. The pigeon blood red ruby was the most expensive amongst them all. It has a 10-carat ruby and is worth $80.5 million. These are gifts to Miss One by a Mr., and he has already paid for them. Guihan was the top designer in the One Corporation, and she had won the fashion competition championship in Paris for 3 consecutive years. The fashion pieces designed by her carried the unique nostalgic trend of Z-country style. This style was popular and highly sought after internationally. It was actually late Madame Wen's idea to cross-sell matching outfits with jewelry and accessories. All these years One Corporation did remarkably well with this strategy. Each of these 5 pieces of jewelry was highly priced, specifically created to match Master Gu's 5 award-winning pieces of clothes. This cross-sell strategy worked well and saved them a huge amount of advertising fees. Wen Xinya instantly recalled the man whom the shop assistant mentioned, but she didn't put it to heart earlier. "Who is that mister?" she asked. Now she found it difficult to make any linkage to this man. Yi Mengjie laughed. "Sorry, I'm unable to disclose his identity. However, Miss One shall find out when the time comes. But I can let you know, it will be of great fortune to be able to know this man." Wen Xinya returned coldly. "Although I wasn't well educated, I'm well aware of the concept of not accepting any form of reward that I do not deserve. I will get someone to send these back. You can decide what to do with them." If this mysterious man had guessed that Wen Xinya would be elated to receive these pieces of expensive jewelry, then he had guessed wrong. No pain, no gain. Wen Xinya believed there must be a secret intention for sending her such expensive gifts. Yi Mengjie rubbed her forehead, thinking to herself this Miss One was a tough nut to crack. Miss One shouldn't take it to heart. $160.5 million may sound like a huge amount of money, but it's only the tip of the iceberg for that mister. Maybe there was something about you that attracted and made him admire, hence he just randomly picked a few items as gifts for you. That's all, she persuaded. Wen Xinya did not get the answer she was seeking, but from Yi Mengjie's words, she felt a great level of suspense. If even as an employee of the One Corporation Yi Mengjie had chosen to hide the man's identity, there must be something going on. That man must be of higher status than the Wen family. Buying jewelry from the One Corporation and sending them to me as gifts. I bet he must have some ulterior motives. She exclaimed. Everyone knew that she just returned to the Wen family and would not be able to afford such expensive jewelry. If grandpa, grandma, or father found out about this matter, it would create a perfect opportunity for Ning Shuqian and Wen Yuya to make a molehill out of a mountain. Yi Mengjie knew that she was carrying a heavy responsibility of convincing Miss Wen. Receiving gifts from an anonymous person would certainly cause someone to be uneasy, but I suggest you keep these pieces of jewelry properly. If you insist on returning them and unintentionally offend that mister in the process, it won't do you or the Wen family any good, she advised. Wen Xinya didn't feel good after hearing Yi Mengjie, but she was no longer the same Wen Xinya of her previous life. Okay, I understand. I hope you can help me keep this a secret, she requested. Yi Mengjie acknowledged with a huge sigh of relief. I will. Definitely. After hanging up the phone, Wen Xinya decided not to let this matter bother her anymore. She covered the big box and left it in the cloakroom. Out of sight, out of mind. Chapter 13. Breeze by the Pillow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 13. Breeze by the Pillow. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Ning Shuqian returned to her room with her daughter, pulling a long face on the way back. The servants saw her and kept as quiet as a cicada in winter. They were scared to even greet her. A few older servants got together and whispered to each other, "Do you know why Madame is so angry? It must have something to do with Miss Xinya. Since she returned to the Wen family, Madame is never happy. The late Madame was much nicer. When she was around, everything in the Wen mansion was organized and smooth under her care. She discriminated one's rewards and punishments and never treated the servants badly. That's right. This Madame always takes it out on the servants. She always puts up a false front and tries to act as though she's an easygoing person, trying to imitate our late Madame. But Master Wen buys it. We should be careful with our words from now on. Otherwise, if she hears us gossiping, who knows what evil plan she will hatch. Do you remember Mother Zhang's incident? She just happened to say something bad about Madame and was asked to leave. Even old Master Wen was unable to help. Back in the room, Ning Shuqian advised Wen Yuya with concern. Yuya, that little bitch Xinya grew up on the streets with a gangster culture. She is arrogant and despicable. Do not confront her head-on in the future. We really don't know what she is capable of doing. Mother is afraid that she could do something to hurt you. When Yuya felt sorry for herself and started crying. Mother, I just can't let it go. What makes that little bitch Xinya so worthy that she is able to get so much love and attention from Grandpa when she has just returned to the Wen family, and then immediately became the beloved Miss Wen? I have been staying in the Wen family for 15 years, and yet, I've got nothing. Father is also biased towards her. My monthly allowance is only 10,000 yuan, while that wretch Xinya who had been living a thug's life has a monthly allowance of 30,000 yuan. Ning Shuqian gave a loud sigh. What other reason could it be other than Wen Xinya having the blood of the Wen family flowing in her? Ning Shuqian married into the Wen family when Yuya was only 4 months old. They even changed Yuya's family name to Wen. It had been 15 years. When Yuya might have already considered herself the real missus of the Wen family. It was very difficult to change her mindset. At the thought of Wen Xinya's looks and temperament greatly resembling that of her late mother, it made Ning Shuqian uneasy. Besides, she was irritated that she wasn't able to get an edge over Wen Xinya that day. She continued, Yuya, she has just returned to the Wen family and is at the peak of her time now. You will be the one losing out if you keep going against her. Let her have her way for this period. After some time she will show her true colors and start to lose Grandpa's love and attention. When Yuya wasn't truly convinced. But Ning Shuqian gently wiped off her tears. Silly child, a chicken is a chicken, it will never become a true phoenix. To be a true missus of an affluent family, one must acquire a good personality and temperament. What characteristics does Xinya possess? When Yuya shook her head. But these are skills that one could pick up. She mentioned that Grandpa will hire a teacher to teach her about etiquette, didn't she? Ning Shuqian snickered. Silly child, if it was that easy to learn, then there wouldn't be any difference between high and low status in society. To display good character and temperament of a missus of an affluent family, it must be instilled into her from a young age. It's not a simple skill that anyone can easily pick up. When Yuya pouted and fell into Ning Shuqian's arm like a little kid. I don't care whether she's a chicken or a phoenix, I just don't want to see that little bitch Xinya again. Mother, please think of a way to get rid of her. Ning Shuqian frowned. Why are you behaving like a little kid? She is, after all, a progeny of the Wen family. How can we just get rid of her easily? When Yuya didn't budge. Mother, you've seen how she treated me today. She has gone against me in every way and even threw a knife at me. If she stays on I might even lose an arm or a leg. When Yuya recalled when they were at Zhou.Ramst earlier, the aura Wen Xinya carried when she walked towards her made her feel suffocated. It was like she had been under her control. Every step Wen Xinya took added torture on her emotionally. There was no word to describe that feeling. She knew Wen Xinya was her nemesis in life. Once Ning Shuqian was back in her room, she was pulled into a passionate hug. Ning Shuqian interrupted their passionate moment with a concerned voice. How when I met Madame Su today. She told me a rumor concerning Shinya. I'm afraid this might have a negative impact on the Wen family's reputation. What is this about? Wen Haowen asked. You know who Su Jinyu is, don't you? He's the second eldest son of the Su family. Mr. Su was well known for his unruly behavior. He is one of the rich playboys in the capital city. Madame Su mentioned to me that Mr. Su thought he had seen Shinya at a club called Black Sunday. She was very drunk. Everyone in the capital city has been rumoring about how arrogant and unruly she behaved, she explained. Ning Shuqian wasn't worried at all about Wen Haowen's suspicion that she couldn't get along well with Wen Shinya. One of the reasons was that she was aware of how much Wen Haowen disliked his daughter. Another reason was that she used to have a good relationship with Rhea, so it made no sense that she could get along with Rhea but couldn't tolerate Wen Shinya. Wen Haowen was always sensitive to his reputation. After hearing Ning Shuqian, his face turned sour. When father found her, I took a look at how she has been living for the past 15 years and didn't agree to let her return to the Wen family. But father persisted on acknowledging her as part of the family. We all know what kind of a sleazy place Black Sunday is. A club filled with vices. If the media came to know about it, I don't dare imagine what they are going to write about us, destroying the Wen family's reputation. Ning Shuqian smiled. Contented with Wen Haowen's reaction, she added, Haowen, Shinya is still a child. She isn't bad to the core, probably just a little unruly in her behavior. I think if we guide her well, she should be able to. Wen Haowen interrupted furiously. You don't have to speak up for her. Just look at her upbringing for the past 15 years. Cheating and stealing, getting into fights. All these are gangster behavior. She doesn't possess the quality and temperament of what a missus from the Wen family should have. Ning Shuqian acted as if she understood the seriousness of the problem. She said in a panicked voice, then what shall we do? The previous incident of a wrong acknowledgement to Rhea had already made an ugly impact on the Wen family's reputation. If this time round Shinya isn't able to show some good behavior, we will definitely become a laughing stock in the high-status society. She had hit the nail with her words. An affluent family always valued its reputation the most. Wen Haowen was exasperated. We can't possibly lock her at home all day long and not let her go out, can we? He said. Ning Shuqian brightened up at the great idea. How about sending her to study abroad? Let her start afresh. Shinya didn't have a chance to complete secondary education and isn't able to go to university. The education system of other countries is very different from ours. Let her experience a change in environment for a few years and give her a chance to kick all her bad habits. Wen Haowen thought this was an excellent idea. Yes, you are right. I will discuss it with father tomorrow, he agreed. Ning Shuqian's eyes sparkled with happiness. She added, it will be difficult for Shinya to stay in a foreign country alone. The living expenses are high. We cannot skimp on her allowances. With money, there would be ample opportunity of going astray. Yes, of course. Chapter 14. Are you jealous of me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 14. Are you jealous of me? Translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. The next morning, when Shinya changed into a light green peach blossom dress, with a jade rose sculpted hairpin holding her hair. On her ears were a pair of jade rose earrings. The silver earring findings had precious yellow jades on the tips as decoration, and they extended through these rose petals hooked onto her earlobes. These were beautiful earrings with thin translucent sculpted rose petals, quivering along as she moved. The way she dressed up made her look even more pure and elegant. When Shinya greeted everyone with a warm smile on her face. Grandpa, Grandma, Father and Aunt Ning, good morning. Old Mr. Wen nodded. The originally stern face had softened. Come and sit beside Grandpa, he told Wen Shinya. She walked over with a big smile. The ambience in the living room became weird. When Xinya had opened up, thus Ning Shuqian and her daughter did not have an edge over her the day before. They wouldn't let the matter rest. In this family, old Madam Wen loved her son dearly, and Wen Haowen was willing to listen to Ning Shuqian. Sister, why do you wake up so late every morning? The entire family has to wait for you. Wen Yuya remarked with an evil smile. Ning Shuqian glared at her, signaling her to stop. Do not make jokes about your sister. Then she looked at Wen Xinya. Xinya, do not mind your sister. You know that she has an outspoken character. Oh yes. Did you have a good night's sleep? She asked in a warm tone and with a smile. With a simple statement, she had turned Wen Yuya's original intention of a challenge into a silly joke. And with another simple sentence, she changed the topic smoothly. Wen Xinya had no reason to show displeasure towards Wen Yuya. Thank you for your concern, Aunt Ning. After shopping for the whole day, I was so tired that I fell asleep very soon. All the way until this morning, she replied. Ning Shuqian slowly turned towards Wen Haowen and looked at him gently with a deeper smile. Wen Haowen glanced at Wen Xinya. She looked like a totally different person with her new outfit. She looked much more charming and elegant. But what difference would it make? Though she managed to change her outlook, it didn't mean it would also change her unrefined nature. You are the eldest daughter of the Wen family. Your actions and every word you say represents the Wen family. You have just returned to the Wen family, thus you need to be aware that some actions are considered appropriate while others are considered inappropriate. Do not display your past gangster behavior in the family. Otherwise, it would cause a disgrace to the Wen family. Yes, father, I understand. Wen Xinya dropped her head, feeling wronged. It must be Ning Shuqian who had spoken badly about her to Wen Haowen last night. Wen Haowen felt angry after detecting her feelings of being wronged. If you understand, why did you visit those sleazy places? If the media finds out, they will make a molehill out of a mountain. You would then have caused damage to the Wen family's reputation. Wen Xinya was taken aback by Wen Haowen's anger. She raised her head and looked at him. There was confusion in her almond-shaped eyes, as if she did not understand what he'd said. Father, did I do something wrong? She asked innocently. Wen Haowen was even more agitated by Wen Xinya's innocent look. Just when he had decided to lecture her, old Mr. Wen interrupted with a sound by pounding the table with the newspaper in his hands. Xinya is your daughter. Can't you talk things out nicely? Do you need to create a big fuss early in the morning? He reprimanded. Wen Haowen gave a quick hard stare at Wen Xinya, then looked at old Mr. Wen with displeasure. Father, can't I even lecture her as her father? Why didn't you ask her what she has done? Now it became known to the media, that our Miss Wen is an arrogant and unrefined person. Xinya has just returned home for a few days, and yet there's already bad rumors about her spreading. Did you analyze this matter with your brain? It is obvious that someone has been trying to make use of this pretext to create a big fuss. Old Mr. Wen felt disappointed in Wen Haowen. Xinya was his birth daughter, after all, his own flesh and blood. Although she had been living a wandering life outside for 15 years and there weren't many bonds between them, but he did not have any reason to detest his own daughter. Wen Haowen begged to differ. If she didn't have a past like that, no one would be able to bad-mouth her. Old Mr. Wen sighed. Regarding Xinya's past, the Wen family owns her much. She didn't have a choice to live like that. Let's not bring this matter up anymore. After finishing his sentence, old Mr. Wen stood up and walked to the study room upstairs. Father. Wen Haowen pursued. What a disaster. Since you returned to the Wen family, we have not had a day of peace. Sigh. It was a very different situation than when Ria was around. Old Madam Wen stared hard at Wen Xinya. She followed them immediately as she was afraid that Wen Haowen and his father would start quarreling. Only Wen Xinya, Ning Shuqian, and Wen Yuya remained in the living room. Wen Yuya raised her eyebrow and seemed content at what had just happened. She said, "Don't ever think you are the real Miss Wen despite having returned to the Wen family. In this family, only Grandpa acknowledges you." Wen Xinya clenched her fists so tightly that her fingers turned colorless. Her sharp fingernails pressed against her palms, the pain almost piercing through her heart. She took a deep breath and forced her tears back. "I'm the eldest Miss Wen. This is an undeniable truth." Every word sounded strong and crisp. Her voice had a hidden strength that was unchallengeable. She looked cold and unshakable. Wen Yuya was stunned and didn't know how to react. "Why are you always against me? Are you jealous of me?" Her expression turned from gentle to cold and unbothered, especially at the last few words. Wen Yuya unconsciously shivered and slowly recovered from her daze. Wen Xinya's words were like a sharp arrow that shot right through her heart, making Wen Yuya turn pale. She responded angrily, "Don't spout nonsense. Why do I have to be jealous of you? Do you know your etiquette on the dining table? Do you know social dancing? How about red wine tasting? I know all that you don't. You are just an unrefined girl, a gangster from the streets. Don't think too highly of yourself." Wen Xinya smiled coldly and said, "Yes, I am indeed not worthy. But the title of eldest Miss Wen is well worthy." Wen Yuya suddenly jumped up from the sofa and wanted to rebuke. "You." Ning Shuqian held and patted Wen Yuya's hand, trying to console her. She said, "The title of eldest Miss Wen is indeed worthy. But not everyone is able to match this title." Wen Yuya realized her mother was right. Her anger was gone. She started to gloat over Wen Xinya's misfortune with a wide smile on her face. "What is the point of arguing? There's nothing you can do. It doesn't help to put a false front. You will soon get into deep trouble." Wen Yuya's words acted as a reminder to Wen Xinya. She felt a strong sense of danger coming to her. "Mother Wang, please get someone to send breakfast to my backyard shortly," said Ning Shuqian while pulling Wen Yuya away. Now, only Wen Xinya was left in the living room. She saw Mother Wang walking towards upstairs with breakfast in her hands. "Mother Wang, is this Grandpa's breakfast? Please pass it to me. I will bring it upstairs," she requested. Mother Wang gladly passed the breakfast to Wen Xinya. Wen Xinya brought breakfast to old Mr. Wen's study room. She was approaching the door when she heard a commotion inside. Chapter 15. Send her abroad. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 15. Send her abroad. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, what? You are such a heartless creature. Xinya led a wandering life for 15 years. She just came back and you want to send her abroad. How can you be so ruthless, reproached old Mr. Wen. He already knew that Wen Haowen despised Wen Xinya for her unglamorous past. But he'd never expected him to be so heartless. "Father, Xinya's past will definitely become the media's weapon to attack the Wen family. I am just worried about our family's reputation," Wen Haowen argued. Old Mr. Wen held the corner of his study table firmly. The veins were clearly visible on the back of his hands. "She is just a child and has a lot to learn. We can teach her slowly. There's no need to condemn her before she even has the chance to prove herself," said old Mr. Wen. Wen Haowen didn't expect his father to be so stubborn. Suppressing his anger, he tried explaining further. "Father, I am also concerned about Xinya. She is just an ordinary child. If someone makes use of the opportunity to bring her into the limelight, how can she withstand all the criticism? If she goes abroad to study for a few years, the education she receives will also do the family and herself proud. You sound so reasonable by saying you have good intentions for the Wen Corporation and for Xinya. Do you really think I don't know your real motives?" You're just afraid that Shinya's behavior will be a disgrace to you, that's all, said old Mr. Wen in a cold voice. Old Madam Wen added, Old man, I think what Hao Wen said makes sense. Shinya does have a weird temperament. I've also heard some bad rumors about Shinya amongst some of my friends. That's why I haven't been eager to join their group activities recently. Especially that Madame Gua, she's been asking me a lot about Shinya lately. Everyone knows Shinya has had an unglamorous past. It has become a laughingstock and a topic for them to gossip about. It does no harm to send Shinya abroad and let her come back after a few years when this topic has settled down. Old Mr. Wen was extremely disappointed to see the mother and son arguing against him in synchronization. He said, I think there's nothing wrong with Shinya. She may be a dull and ordinary piece of jade now, with a bit of mischievous temperament. Given enough time and opportunities, she will become a piece of beautiful glowing jade ornament after putting in hard work. Old Mr. Wen recalled that night when Shinya stood beneath the viburnum tree, that young and beautiful face that stood out from the branches full of viburnum flowers. She looked plain and simple but had a hidden charm and poise that resembled a great deal of her late mother, Mo Yunyao. Old Madam Wen wasn't happy when she heard what he said. I can't see anything good in her. She's rough and unrefined. She even pushed Rhea into the lake. I am an old woman who has lived for more than half a century, but I have never seen any wealthy family's daughter like her, who acts violently and is full of profanity. We all know Rhea's kind and delicate nature, yet Shinya treated her so badly. It shows what a wicked person she is, she replied. Old Mr. Wen said in a frustrated tone of voice, that's already a matter of the past, why can't you just let it go? Both Shinya and Rhea are young, getting into fights and arguments is very common for the youngsters. Who hasn't made any mistakes when they were young? When Hao Wen was about the age of Shinya now, he also frequently got into fights and trouble, didn't he? Old Madam Wen was speechless. Indeed, when Hao Wen was at that age, he was even more rebellious than Shinya. When Hao Wen saw how his father was putting in all the good words for Wen Shinya and knew he wouldn't give in easily, he finally softened his tone. Father, I know you love Shinya and couldn't bear to let her stay abroad by herself. But the media will always find a chance to hound her for having such an unglamorous past, this will be a great disadvantage to her. Old Madam Wen quickly continued, what Hao Wen said makes sense. Old Mr. Wen pointed at Old Madam Wen and Wen Hao Wen and said in a quivering voice, how can you be so ruthless towards the Wen family's own flesh and blood? Old Madam Wen was unhappy to hear that. She said, Old man, what are you saying? How are we ruthless towards her? If she behaves herself, how will I not love her? Though she has just returned to the family and isn't close to me, she has already caused so much trouble and unhappiness within the family. She's not even half as good as Rhea. Old Mr. Wen was feeling more frustrated and felt the injustice for Shinya. Shinya is the true flesh and blood of the Wen family, but all of you have been constantly showing concern only towards Rhea, calling her a few times a day asking whether she has been eating and sleeping well. On the contrary, you have been treating Shinya like an outsider. Do you think Shinya isn't aware of the way you're treating her? You said she isn't close to you. In fact, you haven't been treating her well enough, he responded. Old Madam Wen said, blushing, Rhea has been by my side for the past 12 years. Even though she isn't the true daughter of the Wen family, I still love and care about her. Though Shinya is the flesh and blood of the Wen family, there is no relationship between us. Old Mr. Wen asked angrily, so, is not having a relationship a valid reason to send her abroad? Out of sight, out of mind. Father, this is not what Mother and I meant. Wen Hao Wen explained frantically. Old Mr. Wen noticed the pale and expressionless look on Wen Hao Wen's face. She is your own flesh and blood. No matter what happens, there's Wen family's blood flowing in her body. How can you treat her this way? Have you lost your conscience? I think the breeze by the pillow has blown your conscience away and you cannot even differentiate between right and wrong, he commented. Wen Haowen felt embarrassed. Sending Wen Xinya abroad was indeed Ning Shuqian's idea. Old Madame Wen was always over-protective towards her son and she wouldn't let him suffer any form of humiliation. She stared at old Mr. Wen with dissatisfaction. Old man, is this the way you should talk? How Wen manages a large corporation like the Wen Corporation successfully? Does he look like someone who isn't clear-minded? Old Madame Wen's words gave Wen Haowen some confidence. Father, why don't we ask Xinya for her opinion? Who knows, she might even agree to the idea, he said. I am telling you, Xinya is not going anywhere. She will be staying by my side. If you cannot stand it, you can move out of the Wen mansion. As long as I'm alive, you can forget about sending Xinya away. Old Mr. Wen warned coldly. Old man. Enough said, leave now. Father. Get out. Wen Haowen could suppress his anger no more. Father, you are too stubborn. One day the reputation of the Wen family will perish in your hands, he blurted. Old Mr. Wen laughed coldly. If that happens, I am only destroying the Wen family's reputation. But you want me to destroy the continuation of our family line. If you were able to provide offspring to the Wen family, would I have spent that much effort to search for Xinya? Wen Haowen was stunned. Not having another child had always been one of his biggest regrets. He had secretly gone for medical check-ups at a male-only hospital, and also let Ning Shuqian do her medical check-ups. The results had shown no problems with either of them. He wasn't totally at fault for not being able to let Ning Shuqian conceive. At this moment, Wen Haowen swung the door hard and stomped out in anger. He then saw Wen Xinya standing outside with breakfast in her hands. Chapter 16. Xinya, would you like to go abroad? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 16. Xinya, would you like to go abroad? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Father. Wen Xinya cried while holding back her tears. She had already experienced in her previous life the heartless treatment from the Wen family. She thought she wouldn't mind this time, yet she couldn't help but feel a strong sense of humiliation, anger, and resentment. What wrong have I done? I was not given any opportunity to prove myself before I was condemned. Wen Haowen saw how plain and simple Wen Xinya dressed, and the charm and poise she possessed. The tears welling up in her eyes was as clear as the morning dew. The movement of her quivering eyelashes was like petals of a flower exposed in the cold wind of winter. She looked helpless and pitiful. He was reminded of his late wife, as if she was there standing outside the study room hearing every word he said. He instantly felt at a loss. However, that feeling of loss was quickly replaced by anger. The adults are talking, why are you eavesdropping at the door? You have no manners, he reprimanded. Wen Xinya closed her eyes slowly. A drop of tear fell from her eyes onto her cheek and then slid down onto her lips. She could taste the bitterness and pain. She told herself, this would be the last time she'd shed a tear for the Wen family. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw brightness with some refraction from the tears, like dew from the snowflake. She bitterly said, yes, I have no manners indeed. That's because of you. Because the Wen family has never raised and taught me before. Therefore you have no right to blame me for it. Wen Haowen interpreted her words and expression. He became even angrier. You ungrateful child. Is there anything wrong with me lecturing you as your father? Wen Xinya replied plainly, father has every right to lecture me. Wen Haowen's words instantly lost power in her plain and calm reply, as if punching a piece of cotton. He swung his arms backward and stomped off. The door of the study room was opened once again. Old Madame Wen barged out in anger and saw Wen Xinya standing by the door. All because of you, the Wen family has not had any peace. Are you happy now? She asked coldly. Wen Xinya was flustered. She replied while shaking her head. Grandma, I. Just when old Madam Wen was going to continue with her lecture, they heard the voice of old Mr. Wen from the study room. He sighed. Xinya, come on in. Wen Xinya gave old Madam Wen an apologetic look and walked into the room dropping her head. Grandpa, you haven't had your breakfast yet. I have brought it here for you, she said. Old Mr. Wen saw sorrow on her face. She was acting with caution as if she was an outsider. He knew she heard their conversation. I have no appetite. I'm not having breakfast, he answered. After some consideration, Hao Wen's suggestion to send Xinya abroad wasn't a bad one, even though his original intention was selfish and ruthless, and it might actually be beneficial to both the Wen Corporation and Xinya. The education system abroad was indeed better than the local one. Letting her receive education abroad and experience a different culture might do her good. It could also be a good chance for old Mr. Wen to see if she could grow and transform into the true Wen family's daughter, and hence be the Wen Corporation's heir. Wen Xinya lowered her head. Her eyelashes quivered and she remained silent. Old Mr. Wen sighed. Xinya, would you like to go abroad? Wen Xinya looked up at her grandpa abruptly and interrupted. Grandpa, I heard from Mother Wang by chance that I have a maternal grandfather. Grampy. I think I would like to meet him. It seemed like Grandpa was already shaken. He sounded as if he was asking for her opinion, but in his heart, he was almost convinced by Wen Haowen's suggestion. It was hard for Wen Xinya to get Grandpa's approval and support, thus she couldn't let Ning Shuqian create more obstacles by sending her abroad. Staying with her Grampy for a while might be a way out. Wen Haowen and Ning Shuqian's original intention was to send Wen Xinya abroad. However, they didn't manage to convince Grandpa, thus Ning Shuqian would definitely try other methods to get rid of her. At the thought of what Ning Shuqian did to her in her previous life, doing all she could to chase Wen Xinya out of the Wen family, she felt bitterly disappointed and tired of having to constantly raise her guard. This probably would also give her an opportunity to avoid Ning Shuqian for the time being. After saying that, Wen Xinya felt a little more courage on her own decision. She looked at Grandpa and repeated her intention, Grandpa, I would like to stay with Grampy for a short period of time. From the memory of her previous life, Wen Xinya knew that her father was very afraid of her Grampy. Many had fear and respect for Grampy too, for he was highly regarded in the literary world. If she stayed with her Grampy, Wen Haowen wouldn't dare to insist his way on Wen Xinya. And no matter how scheming Ning Shuqian was, she too wouldn't insist on her way without Wen Haowen's support. Grandpa had an even greater sense of guilt towards Wen Xinya's for her understanding and making approaches to give in. If Ning Shuqian continued to hatch any evil plans in the future, Grandpa would be more decisive and firm, and not let her have her way easily. Old Mr. Wen was taken aback. The silence went on for a while, until he took a deep breath and then replied, Okay, your Grampy called me a few days ago, saying he wanted to see you. But I rejected him as you had just returned. I was planning to let you meet him after some time when you're settled. I've not thought about. He did not continue. Wen Xinya did not mention anything about the earlier conversation in the study room, so he wouldn't bring it up either. Although old Mr. Wen had the intention to send her abroad, he would still respect her decision. Now that she had suggested that she wanted to stay in the Mo family, he would definitely give his approval. Thank you, Grandpa. Mother Wang told me I was Grampy's only kin. I had always wanted to visit him. Now my wish has come true, said Wen Xinya with a smile, but her voice was shaking with sadness and tears in her eyes were being held back. It was as if her tears had strong determination like her, welling up in her eyes without falling down. She was saving her grandpa from embarrassment despite her own bitterness. Old Mr. Wen had mixed feelings for his granddaughter. He said, It's great that you can accompany your Grampy. He only had a daughter, but ever since your mother passed away, he has no other family. Previously, he and Ru also weren't close at all. I will accompany Grampy more often and show filial piety to him on mother's behalf, she said with resentment in her voice. She was able to see things from a different perspective after rebirth. In her previous life, it was Ning Shuqian, Wen Yuya and Xia Ruya who pushed her towards a path of no return. If the Wen family hadn't placed the priority of their interests and benefits over everything, she could have a different outcome. Old Mr. Wen felt consoled. You are a good child, he said. Wen Xinya continued to fight her tears in silence. Looking at her drooping head and shoulders, old Mr. Wen felt a sense of injustice. Your Grampy is a very knowledgeable man, I am sure you will learn a great deal from him, he continued, as if trying to further convince himself. I know. Old Mr. Wen pulled her into his arms, fondling her head and saying, I am old and useless. There are many things in the family that I have no say anymore, hence letting you suffer. Let me get Mother Wang to start packing for you. I'll send you over to Grampy later. Wen Xinya just returned to the Wen family. She was well aware that she had not done anything to impress her grandpa yet. And grandpa had doubts if she could really ditch her past and live up to everyone's expectations, becoming the true Wen family's daughter. So he had chosen to abandon her temporarily. Chapter 17. I will be back, there are plenty of opportunities. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 17. I will be back, there are plenty of opportunities. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Back in the room, Mother Wang was packing her stuff. As when Xinya looked at the empty cupboards, it felt like her heart had been emptied as well. She felt lost. Mother Wang saw the dejected Miss Wen who was sitting on the bed. She felt sorry for her. She was the late madam's only daughter, who led a wandering life on the streets for 15 years. Now that she's finally back to the Wen family, she was immediately being sent away. Mother Wang recalled the initial moments when Miss Wen had just returned. She was like a wounded hedgehog, impatient and helpless, always guarding against everyone in the Wen family. Old Madam Wen only cared about Miss Ruya and neglected Miss Xinya. Ning Shuqian looked like an easy-going person but was scheming at heart. Wen Yuya and her were always making things difficult for Wen Xinya. Old Mr. Wen was also cold towards her. That day in the backyard, she saw that it was Miss Ruya who accidentally fell into the lake, but she had insisted that it was Miss Xinya who pushed her. With a few servants supporting Miss Ruya's words, old Mr. Wen, old Madam Wen, and Master Wen Hao Wen concluded it was Miss Xinya's fault and gave her a good lecture. Miss Xinya, your things are all packed. Drying her tears, Wen Xinya slowly recovered a clear vision. She saw there were 2 pieces of clothing and some jewelry in the cupboard. She smirked. I do not have many belongings anyway, I'll bring all the remaining items. Otherwise, I might have to trouble Grampy to buy more things for me if there's anything missing. Mother Wang felt teary. My pitiful Miss Xinya, late madam will be watching you from the heavens. She'll bless you to have a good life, she said, feeling sorry for her. When Xinya recovered from her lost state, she said, yes, that's right. Mother is watching me from heaven. She must have seen the pain and suffering I had gone through, hence giving me a chance to rebirth so that I can control my own destiny. Mother Wang finished packing. When Xinya stared at the empty room, there wasn't anything left that belonged to her, as if she was just a guest who had rented the room. She changed her emotion and spoke lightly into the air. I will be back. Yes, she will be back. Mother Wang ordered the servants to carry Wen Xinya's luggage to the living room. Ning Shuqian and Wen Yuya were there sitting on the sofa watching the busy servants carrying her luggage and stuff. They were secretly happy in their hearts. Wen Yuya asked in an elated tone, Yo sister, where are you going? Why the luggage and parcels? Wen Xinya ignored her. Wen Yuya continued rubbing salt on the wound. You've just returned to the Wen family for a few days and now you're leaving with your luggage. Did Grandpa chase you out? At this moment, old Mr. Wen was standing at the stairway on the second floor. He was so mad that it caused pain to his chest when he saw how the true Wen family's daughter was being bullied by a lowly adopted daughter, and yet she had to suffer in silence. The nice easy-going daughter-in-law who was sitting on the sofa also looked jubilant, as if she was gloating over Wen Xinya's misfortune. Did you really wish for Xinya to be driven out of the Wen family by me? Hearing a deep and furious voice, Ning Shuqian and Wen Yuya felt a chill. They looked up and saw old Mr. Wen standing at the stairways, hearing everything Wen Yuya said earlier. Ning Shuqian could feel the authority in his eyes from afar, coupled with anger and coldness. Old Mr. Wen was known for his influence and decisiveness during his younger days. This power of authority had not reduced at all years after he had left the business world. Ning Shuqian turned pale and quickly reacted, "Father, that's not what Yuya meant. She's just an innocent and outspoken child. She might have said the wrong things. Please don't hold it against her." Wen Yuya froze with fear. "Grandpa, Old Mr. Wen softened slightly. He said, "I am sorry to disappoint the two of you. Xinya's grandpa called and asked me to bring her over so that she can stay with him for a while. She will return." Ning Shuqian was puzzled. Why wasn't she being sent abroad? Why did the plan change to her staying in the Mo family? Ning Shuqian tried to explain. "Father." Old Mr. Wen had a ferocious look in his eyes. "When Xinya is away, if you create any more trouble, you will not get away with it. Either I or someone else will take care of you." Ning Shuqian shivered at the thought of how clear-minded old Mr. Wen was. There were almost no evil intentions that could escape his eyes. She turned and looked at Wen Xinya, who was grinning with numbness. She had almost forgotten Wen Xinya had a connection with old Mr. Mo. Ning Shuqian suddenly regretted making the suggestion to let Wen Xinya go abroad. She had unintentionally created an excuse for her to go to the Mo family. Old Mr. Mo held high status in the literary world and everyone feared and respected him. Going to the Mo family would be like adding wings to Wen Xinya's back. She started panicking just at the thought of it. But she also remembered old Mr. Mo had a cold temperament. When Ria entered the Wen family years ago, he didn't treat her very well. They only met during special occasions and did not have a close relationship. All these years Ria didn't receive any benefits from the Mo family. In comparison, Wen Xinya was even more unrefined. It's unlikely old Mr. Mo would be nice to her, and she too wouldn't receive any benefits from the Mo family. Old Mr. Wen looked at Wen Yuya sharply. "Whatever the Wen family has given to you, we can also take it back easily. If that ever happens, even your stepfather wouldn't be able to protect you." He emphasized the word stepfather with purpose, signaling her to take his words as a severe warning. Wen Yuya turned pale with fear. She clenched her fists hard. Hatred filled her eyes. It was all that bitch, Wen Xinya's fault. Otherwise, Grandpa wouldn't treat her badly. "Wen Xinya, watch and see. I will not let you die in peace." Old Mr. Wen knew what they were thinking. Xinya was away for 15 years and had an unglamorous past. She had no relationship with the Wen family. Moreover, old Madam Wen and Wen Haowen didn't like her. Once they succeeded in making the Wen family detest Xinya, they would be the rightful heirs to the Wen family's wealth. Xinya's return had triggered Ning Shuqian and her daughter's greed. And it created an opportunity for them to act in accordance with the greed within. Old Mr. Wen stomped out of the living room furiously. Wen Xinya slowly walked towards Ning Shuqian and stood in front of her. She bent down and whispered into her ear, "Hold on, I will be back. There are plenty of opportunities." Wen Xinya's light breathing landed on her ears. It felt itchy and irritating, as if a caterpillar was crawling on her ears. Ning Shuqian said with a forced smile, "Xinya, I don't understand what you mean. Wen Xinya came face to face with her expressionless. Her lengthy fingers pointed at her chest and said, "It doesn't matter. As long as your heart understands." Wen Xinya's action caused Ning Shuqian's heart to race, lube.dub, lube.dub. When she finally started calming herself down, Wen Xinya had already walked out of the Wen mansion. Chapter 18. Grampy, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 18. Grampy Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The car stopped in front of the MO mansion. The MO mansion was a multi-story bungalow built based on a foreign-style structure. It had 6 Ionia-styled pillars in the front porch, with all the walls painted in a cream-white color. The design was exquisite. Wen Xinya felt teary when she saw the familiar building in front of her. The Mo family were descendants of a scholar family since the period of the Qing dynasty. It had a much deeper heritage in comparison to the Wen family. During the Japanese occupation, the ancestor of the Mo family was assigned as the principal of the capital university and was tasked to spread and educate the concept of strengthening society by studying. The Mo family suffered relentless attacks and most of the Mo family members were killed. When it reached Grampy, he was the only descendant of the family. Grampy had a very close relationship to Granny and he became a father at middle age. So when Granny died of dystocia like mother, he decided not to remarry. Although the Mo family suffered a decline of influence, everyone still respected them. Apart from the Mo family's deep heritage, Grampy had also established himself as an influential figure in the literary world. No one dared to show him any disrespect. In her previous life, when Wen Xinya had just returned to the Wen family, Grampy, a white-haired old man, had fetched her over for a short stay. He saw how unrefined she was, so he decided to teach her skills in poetry, chess, and painting. He had been strict with her. At that time she thought she was already the true Wen family's daughter and hence her behavior was arrogant and impatient. She wouldn't withstand any discipline, so she secretly returned to the Wen family. When Ning Shuqian sowed discord afterward, her relationship with Grampy got worse. After that Grampy came to visit Wen Xinya a few times at the Wen family. Then he suffered a heart attack and died at home, alone. His body was only discovered by his student 3 days later when he was unable to contact him. Wen Xinya regretted how unfilial she had been in her previous life. She decided to stay by Grampy this time and see him enjoy longevity. Xinya, Xinya. Wen Xinya held back her tears. Grandpa. Old Mr. Wen noticed her low spirits. He recalled this morning's incident and had a sense of guilt and pity towards her. We have arrived. What are you thinking about? You were so deep in thought that you didn't hear me calling you, he asked. It's nothing. I just had a strong feeling when I saw this building. It seems like it has gone through the vicissitudes of life. That's right. This building had a rich heritage in history. It has witnessed the well-off Mo family through its misfortunes, and also witnessed Grampy's lonely life. Old Mr. Wen sighed. This bungalow has been built since the era of the warlords. From that time until the Japanese occupation, and then till the Communist Wars, it has been more than 90 years. It has been renovated and part of it was reconstructed several times. It's your Grampy's wish to stay here. Old Tao, the driver, opened the door for old Mr. Wen. Wen Xinya went over and held him by his arm. Roses were growing on the black metal gate. There were red, white, peach-colored and pink roses, beautiful and magnificent. The surrounding was filled with the fragrance of fresh flowers. It was an enchanting moment. A quinquagenarian and a sharp-looking white-haired old man came out together. Wen Xinya immediately recognized them. The quinquagenarian was Uncle Zhang, the housekeeper of the Mo family, and the white-haired old man was Grampy, Mo Xianqi. Uncle Zhang quickly came to open the metal gate. He stared at Wen Xinya, who was quietly standing there, with tears welling up in his eyes. "She looks very much alike," he exclaimed. He then realized it was rude of him to let the guests stand outside. He instantly opened the gate wider and greeted them. "Old one, Miss Young Lady, please come in." Wen Xinya thanked Uncle Zhang with a nod and continued holding Grandpa into the courtyard. She raised her head and saw Grampy observing her from head to toe. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. She didn't know how to react. Old Mr. Wen greeted with laughter. "Old Mo, we haven't seen each other for a while. You are still the same, old but strong and fit." Grandpa and Grampy were good friends when they were young. Grampy was happy to let his daughter marry into the Wen family. However, after Wen Xinya's mother had passed away, the two families seldom saw each other. "Thank you." Old Mr. Mo looked stern as he stood there quietly, as sturdy as a cypress tree with a sense of unwavering pride. With just two simple words he brought old Mr. Wen a sense of guilt. He slowly walked over, pulling Wen Xinya along, and introduced. "This is Xinya, our dear granddaughter. I've brought her over to see you. She looks exactly like Yao.er, from looks to behavior." Old Mr. Mo looked carefully at his granddaughter, who was standing behind the gate that was full of roses. Wen Xinya was wearing a light green peach blossom dress with green jade gems accessories. She just stood there quietly. Old Mr. Mo recognized his granddaughter at the very first sight because she resembled greatly her late mother. This was probably the power of kinship. These words of affirmation gave her confidence. She recovered instantly from her daze and greeted. "Grampy. Great. Great. Great." He was overjoyed and said the word "great" consecutively 3 times with complex emotions. He touched her hair with his trembling hands, unable to control his intense feelings. Tears welled up in Wen Xinya's eyes again. Seeing this scene of how Grampy was overjoyed to see his granddaughter again, old Mr. Wen was touched by the power of kinship. Them years ago when Rhea came to visit old Mr. Mo, he didn't like her. No matter how Rhea tried to please him, he had always given her the cold shoulder. Their relationship turned sour over time. Old Mr. Mo turned to Uncle Zhang and said, "Old Zhang, get the servants to carry Miss Wen's luggage to her room, and bring her back to rest. Grandpa, Grampy. Please have a chat while I go to my room to unpack." She followed Uncle Zhang obediently into the bungalow. She excused herself and left the two elders to their chat. On the way back to her room, Uncle Zhang was observing this new young mistress who had just returned. To his surprise, young mistress was very much different from the rumors he had heard about her. Instead of behaving in an unrefined manner, she was as graceful as her late mother, observing her new environment in the bungalow. It showed that she was a respectful and observant person. Uncle Zhang remembered when Xia Ria first came over. Though she looked classy and presentable, she didn't look like mistress at all. Xia Ria had a sense of greed in her eyes when she saw the exquisite design and expensive furniture in the house. This made old Mr. Mo extremely disappointed. Never did they expect that she was actually an imitation. Fortunately, old Mr. Mo was wise enough to not to be deceived by her. Uncle Zhang looked at the young mistress in front of him again. She was the true daughter of the late mistress, backed by a DNA test result. She was indeed the offspring of the Wen and Mo families, hence she had a unique temperament. "Young mistress, that room in front belonged to the late mistress. Old Master Mo has instructed me to clean it up for your stay," he informed. Wen Xinya looked up and saw a blooming viburnum tree dancing gracefully in the wind. The petals were beautiful like snow. It was such a magnificent and enchanting moment. White can be enchanting too. Chapter 19. Harem. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 19. Harem Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' Uncle Jean replied with a smile, "Viburnum flowers are a favorite of the late mistress. She planted this viburnum tree in front of her room at a very young age. You are her daughter, no wonder you like viburnum flowers so much. It has since been more than 30 years. It's beautiful. The viburnum tree in the Mo family's bungalow was more beautiful than the one in the Wen's mansion. Grampy had been taking good care of it since it was her mother's favorite. Uncle Zhang led Wen Xinya into the room. Young mistress, please feel free to let me know if you need anything else, he said. Thank you, Uncle Zhang, said Wen Xinya, thankful. Uncle Zhang ordered the servants to unpack Wen Xinya's luggage. The Wen family was too much. Young mistress is back for not more than a week and yet she has so little belongings with a few pieces of jewelry. There isn't even a piece of representable jewelry. Wen Xinya felt warmth in her heart. In her previous life, Uncle Zhang had treated her well too, but she didn't take it to heart. He returned back to his own village soon after for personal reasons. Wen Xinya looked around the room. There was a huge bed made of agarwood, its dark wooden surface shining with polish. The natural wood markings and chiseled marks were uneven but beautiful. Mild crack lines extended around the surface, and she could smell the mild fragrance of the agarwood. Agarwood has a unique fragrant smell, which was commonly known for its ability to ward off evil, boost mental consciousness, maintain health, keep bugs away and even keep the wood dry from moisture. This type of wood is less commonly found nowadays. This huge bed made of agarwood was a dowry for Granny's wedding years ago. Granny was from the Ren family, who was also of influential status in the literary world. The ancestors of the Ren family used to be officials with high status in the court. The two families, Ren and Mo, had close relationships and the Ren family also suffered a similar fate as the Mo family. The Ren family did not have any descendants at present. The dressing table, boxes, and combs were a complete set of dowry made from yellow rosewood. This type of wood was the most expensive of Z country's top 4 wood and it was very valuable. The cloakroom was hidden behind an embroidery screen with flowers and birds. Its size was about 30 square meters. She felt enchanted as if she had walked into an exquisite harem of ancient times. She could see Grampy's love for mother everywhere in the bungalow. She recalled in her previous life when she came to Grampy's house for the first time, she didn't know how valuable the dowry was. Grampy was furious when she accidentally broke one of the combs made with yellow rosewood. At that time, she was angry about Grampy's reaction. It's just another lousy comb, isn't it? What's so fabulous about it? Grampy was infuriated. She ran away and went back to the Wen family on the same day. In this lifetime she could better understand why Grampy was furious. This yellow rosewood set was Granny's dowry and belonged to Granny and Mother for 2 generations. Now that Granny and Mother were gone, these items were full of sentimental values, thus Grampy treasured them. Hence, when Wen Xinya didn't value these items he was sad and devastated. Moreover, Grampy had acknowledged and loved her dearly, unlike others who thought she was unrefined. Therefore, he had willingly passed these valuable items to Wen Xinya. But she didn't treasure them and broke the comb instead, thus disappointing him. Grampy was the only one in the world who really cared about her. Wen Xinya touched the jewelry box on the dressing table carefully. Then she touched the comb and put it into the jewelry box with great care. She turned around and saw Grampy at the door, looking at her. She greeted him cheerfully. Grampy. This room belonged to your mother, do you like it? He asked. His mixed emotions earlier had turned into joy and consolation when he saw how she treasured and carefully handled the items that belonged to her mother. This scene reminded him of his late wife and daughter. Yes, I like it. When I just stepped in I had a moment of confusion, as if I had stepped into a different time. I felt like I was a mistress from ancient times. She spoke with astonishment as she looked around and observed the decoration of the room. This room was decorated by your granny. Most of the decorations are part of your granny's dowry. When your mother got married years ago, I had the intention of sending them to the Wen family, but your mother refused. She wanted the items to stay and keep me company. He had realized that fortunately these items weren't sent to the Wen family. Otherwise, it would have benefited someone else. When mother got married, Grampy was the only one left in this bungalow. If there was nothing left for you, you would feel lonely. Wen Xinya seemed to understand her mother's intentions. Old Mr. Mo let go of the stern look on his face. He said, the decoration in this room was according to your mother's liking. You can rearrange them if you like. Wen Xinya took a quick glance at each corner of the room and then shook her head. Everything's fine. I like it. The decorations here represented Grampy and Granny's efforts and love for mother. I wouldn't want to change it. Old Mr. Mo frowned and said, I heard from Uncle Zhang that you did not bring a lot of belongings over. If there's anything you need, just let him know and he'll get it for you. Thank you, Grampy. Wen Xinya nodded. Old Mr. Mo smiled. This is also your home, you can stay here comfortably. There are not too many restrictions around here. Grampy is no stranger. This time Wen Xinya couldn't control her tears anymore. Soon, she started crying. Yes, Grampy. Old Mr. Mo pulled Wen Xinya into his arms and patted her back with his wrinkled hands. These few years it has been hard on you. Sometimes, feelings about someone can be strangely accurate. When Grampy first saw Xiaoria, he had negative feelings about her. Even though she presented herself well at a young age, but there was greed in her eyes. He was disappointed whenever he thought about the negative feelings his granddaughter gave him, and over time their relationship remained plain. Little did he expect that this person who gave him a bad feeling wasn't his true granddaughter. Xinya was a good child. The Wen family thought she was unrefined and did not see the good in her. Wen Xinya cried uncontrollably in Grampy's arms. Old Mr. Mo could feel her suffering. It does not matter whether the Wen family loves you or not. You can stay with Grampy as long as you like. You are Grampy's only kin, I will not let you suffer anymore, he said. Wen Zhihong was someone who only cared about monetary benefits. Qin Shulan was selfish. Wen Haowen was heartless. Her stepmother Ning Shuqian was cunning. While her stepsister Wen Yuya was arrogant. And then there was also Xiaoria, who was a scheming person. The Wen family was a place full of danger indeed. I got it, Grampy. Wen Xinya was touched. She couldn't understand her foolish behavior and why she chose to treat Grampy badly under Ning Shuqian's influence in her previous life. She took Grampy's love for granted and hurt him terribly, causing him a miserable death while she focused all her energy to gain the trust and love of the Wen family. In this lifetime she would not let Grampy get hurt again. She would protect those she loved and those who loved her. She would not let Grampy go through that painful experience again. Chapter 20. Acknowledgement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 20. Acknowledgement. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Old Mr. Mo strolled in the backyard garden after leaving Wen Xinya's room. The sight of the viburnum tree made him recall the memories of Yao.er and himself planting the tree when she was much younger. Although the memory had long faded, he vividly remembered Yao.er wearing a white long dress with a pink butterfly knot tied to her waist. He remembered they sat beneath a tree and the little girl kept asking, "Father, Father, when will the viburnum tree grow taller?" "Father, Father," it was mentioned in the books that the petals of viburnum flowers are big, pure as jade and look magnificent when they blossom. The center of a viburnum flower looks like a white pearl, surrounded by 5 petals, and the flowers grow in multiples of 8. The books described it as beautiful as butterflies surrounding the pearl, thus it was also known as butterfly flower. There's also another name, the 8 deities flower, because it also resembled 8 deities dancing elegantly. Lu Chang expressed in his poem. Millions of oriental plants competing for distinction, but none can compete with the viburnum flower. I wonder when we can see the flowers blossom. More than 30 years had passed, and this viburnum tree had grown and blossomed with the most beautiful flowers. It was just as innocent as the smile on the face of the little girl who danced around this tree years ago. The servants gathered around and their conversations could be heard from a distance away. Young mistress really resembled the late mistress in terms of looks and temperament. She's very different from Wenruya. When Wenruya first came to the Mo family, though she looked obedient and adorable, her rounded eyes seemed to harbor evil intentions. It just made us feel uncomfortable. Yes, that's right. Every time she visited the Mo family's bungalow, she had her eyes on the valuable antiques. We all knew she wasn't a simple girl. We really didn't like the way she behaved. Though she was such a young girl, she always displayed arrogance as if she was above us all. There wasn't any resemblance of the late mistress. I already had a strong feeling that she wasn't the late mistress' child. Stop saying nonsense. How can she even be compared to mistress? Both Old Master Mo and the late Old Madam are descendants from literary families. They value virtue above anything else. Mistress had been brought up in such a positive environment, thus she had acquired good virtues and ethics. How can that wild sparrow have the same quality standards just because she was lucky enough to enter a phoenix's nest? Exactly, she's just a wild sparrow. At this point, everyone felt contempt for this person and stopped commenting. Uncle Zhang, do you know what's young mistress' favorite food? So that we can prepare some. The late mistress used to like to eat dessert after a meal. Do you know if young mistress has the same habit? Oh no, youngsters nowadays prefer to remain slim, they might not like to eat dessert, especially at night. I saw that young mistress is very skinny. She must have suffered during all these years. Let me prepare some red date black chicken soup to give her some nourishment. There was a student of Old Master who gave him wild ginseng as a gift. I heard it was extracted from the Baekdu Mountains. Shall I add some of this ginseng and angelica to the soup? It'll greatly enhance the nutritional value. I think not. Young mistress is still young, nourishment might not do her good. Maybe she should drink more soup filled with different vitamins, and over time her health will improve. Uncle Zhang was gladdened to see everyone's excitement. They had started to prepare for dinner early that day. Let me check with young mistress what's her favorite dishes. Please carry on with the preparation. Don't forget about Old Master's favorite dishes too. He must be elated about young mistress coming home today and may have a good appetite, he said. Exactly right. Since mistress left, I've not seen Old Master as happy as today. I hope young mistress can continue to stay here as long as possible. We never know, young mistress may be staying here for good. Look at the way the Wen family treated her. I doubt Old Master will let her return to the Wen family and let her suffer. Old Master Mo never imagined the Mo family would be this lively again. When Xinya's return had an ecstatic effect on the dead and silent Mo's bungalow. Uncle Zhang looked up and noticed Old Master Mo standing at a distance away from them, thus he immediately walked towards his master. Old Zhang, come and take a walk with me. Old Master Mo said plainly. Uncle Zhang agreeably walked beside him. Old Master Mo abruptly commented. She is a good child. Uncle Zhang smiled. Yes, indeed. Young mistress has a good temperament. Though she does not have the virtues of late mistress yet, I can see the potential of turning her into a great piece of gem with some training. Old Master Mo laughed. Yes, you are right. I think she has a stronger character than Yao.er. Though Yao.er had good virtues, she had an unyielding character with no intention to compete for anything. She did not even fight for the man she loved, thus losing his love for her. Xinya is quite unlike her mother. When I found out from old Mr. when she was the one who wanted to come and stay with the Mo family, I knew she was different. When Xinya knew how to make concessions in order to gain some advantages, and not everyone could do it as well as her. Young mistress led a wandering life starting a very young age. She has been through hardships and sufferings. Therefore, she knows better how to protect herself. The late mistress grew up under your care. She never had to experience the cruelty of the outside world and hence became an unyielding and less petty-minded person. Old Master Mo sighed. Your observation makes good sense. Uncle Zhang responded with a smile. Old Master Mo felt emotional. During my younger days, my mother brought me to a fortune teller. He told me I am the reincarnation of the Star of Wisdom. He said I would achieve great success in life, but my kinship with my family would suffer a different fate and I am destined to be alone. I was young then and chose not to believe in destiny. Who would have expected both Yuqian and Yao.er to die from dystocia, and my only granddaughter went missing. I had no choice but to resign to fate. When I saw in her eyes the trust and faith Xinya has in me, I knew that was the family bond one was waiting for. Though I am not blessed to have many children and grandchildren, having the company of one granddaughter is all I can ask for, he said. What old Master Mo didn't know was, he did die a lonely death in her previous life. Uncle Zhang saw the look of satisfaction in old Master Mo's eyes. He said, I don't believe in destiny either. However, I believe a good person will be rewarded. You are a well-respected person and will be blessed with good fortune. In fact, due to my negative experience with Xia Ria, this time I did not carry high hopes for Xinya either. Though I was aware she returned to the Wen family recently, I only watched her closely from far away. I didn't do much other than that and let the poor child suffer in the Wen family, old Master Mo said with regret, knowing his granddaughter was almost driven out from the Wen family. Uncle Zhang frowned and agreed. The Wen family fetched young mistress back but did not treat her well. When I saw the servants unpack her luggage, she had very little belongings. I feel sorry for young mistress. Old Master Mo's face turned sour. The people in the Wen family have always placed their own benefits as the priority. Xinya has an unglamorous past, thus the Wen family naturally won't accept her. Moreover, she has a stepmother and stepsister with evil and greedy intentions. They will definitely hatch some plans to make the people in the Wen family detest her while she doesn't have any strong relationships with the family. In this way, they will become the rightful heirs to the Wen family's wealth. Uncle Zhang sighed. Young mistress' fate is pitiful. She started leading a stray life at a young age. Finally, when she had the opportunity to reunite with the Wen family, it turned out to be a dragon and tiger's den. One wrong move and it could cause her to go on a path of no return. Old Master Mo said coldly, it depends on how Xinya sees it.